I've always been a fan of yours.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, thank you
Yeah.
so much. That means so much to me. Seriously,
No,
thank
for
you so
real, man.
much.
You always
See you.
ask such
And
great
I want,
questions.
I've always been interested about the physicality of performances and kind of how that informs you as actors about who your character is based on the way they move. Like the way your character rides a sandworm, the way he does the sand walk, and for you, the way he fights, the way he does, like the way he screams. These are just very interesting physical movements. I'm just curious how each of you view those movements and how those inform you as to who your character is, like the way he rides that worm, the way he...
Man, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to talk about with other actors in performance. You know, I wouldn't relate this immediately to the physicality of our performances, nor would I ever put myself in the boxes of such legends. But, you know, I've talked about it a million times with The Dark Knight's one of my favorite films that I grew up on. And I think there's something to the stoicness that Christian Bale plays Bruce Wayne with that contrasts like so beautifully with the sort of wild nature of Heath Ledger's performance. And I do see something similar in this film where I think Paul Atreides is, if not always a hero, obviously, especially with what's to come, is a sort of a moral center in some capacity, almost like a bass line on a guitar or something.
Yeah.
And that Fade Ralph is terror embodied.
Pinch harmonics on a guitar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I
Yeah.
see it. You know, and, like a, yeah, sort of like terrifying vision of a skewed messianic figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about for you, the way he fights, the way he moves, like the tongue sticking out? I think that to me was like just such a shocking image.
That was something that we were doing in the camera test, because we were testing out to see, do we like the black teeth? Should I just have my teeth? Well, you know, and then during that I was doing these expressions, and then Denise said, what if he has a tick?
That's crazy.
You know, and there's this tick that he has that comes out, and so that became kind of part of it, you know, of moments with a heightened emotion that lead to this tick coming out. And but yeah, you're always just finding, like, you know, the voice helped a lot to find my way in, and then those physicality things and the way he walks. And
One thing you're curious about as actors is your relationship to your DP. And then when you see the final product and you hear your performance set to a score, but like when you look at Bob Richardson on like Quentin on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you look at Hoytema on Interstellar, and obviously Greg Fraser here. What is your relationship like with the DP on set? Are you interested at all in knowing how you're being framed, how they're doing it? Like, do you geek out at all about that kind of stuff? I'm just curious what your relationship is with that.
with that stuff.
Yeah, I'm a geek as well in that regard, but not in trying to understand like the practicalities. Like I think Zendaya and Austin. I mean, my immediate memories are Zendaya really wants to know to a terminal definitional. That's not a word, but she wants to know the definitions of each thing going on. For me, it's more like on a film of this size or scale, or like Interstellar or Wonka, you kind of need to know what's going on in the frame. And I actually feel like Greg Fraser, particularly in our fight, I don't know if you remember, there was like one of the last shots in our sequence, and he literally just told me a thing about the light and how it was. Oh, wow. It was like, and it wasn't a necessity. It was more just like, hey, if you want to catch this more, it'll actually be helpful. And whereas I find in the smaller films I've done that are more, you know, fly on the wall, it's actually crucial to kind of not know what's in the frame, and that it really is just a slice of life. But here you have, I believe you kind of have to know what's going on.
I agree. It's different every time. There are films.
Richardson, though, man.
I mean,
Richardson
freaking
out.
Amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Dude.
To watch him light a set is incredible, and then his energy on set, and I mean, he's just such a legend. Same thing with Greg Fraser on this. You know, it was amazing seeing him and Denis work together and setting up a shot and the collaboration between the two of them, and then also just like what Timothy was saying, you know, with this, there are a lot of other projects where I don't want to watch playback or anything, but the composition of each shot is so specific. And so the angle of your head, the angle of the way that the roof line is framed, or whatever these things are, there were moments that Greg would say, you see this is the line here, and then you kind of, it just opens you up to realizing you're part of the architecture of the entire frame, you know. So yeah, it it's an amazing thing watching a cinematographer like that.
There's a quote that Frank Herbert wrote, which is actually in the first Dune as well, which is, "The mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience." And I find that to be a really interesting quote because it was written in, the 60s, and I think that applies so much to today about living in the moment and being present. As actors who have worked in this Dune world now, I'm just curious what that line means to you on a personal level, how you experience your own life, and kind of how you maybe stop to try and process it and be in it.
Wow, what a great quote to pull from the book. That's always a quote that's jumped out to me too. I don't know how I could relate it to my life, but at least in relating it to the tone of film and how to engage with it as an actor, it's necessary. So much of Dune's about plans behind plans and politics, and while there's no way to precisely play that, it's so important that as an actor you make sure the questions are there as guides and not necessarily to be answered. And that's something on other movies isn't necessarily true, but here the reality of the film or what your character's going through is to be experienced, as opposed to the idea that, oh, well, if Paul has visions of the future, he has the answers, and that would come with a sense of calmness, because he doesn't know if he's on a gilded path, all the more so when Fade Rautha comes in the picture and is on the same path, and could very well spell the end of Paul. But I love that you pulled that quote. It's always a quote that's really stayed with me from the book.
I mean, that's great, and I love how you relate it to the film in that way. I mean, really, it's just such a true statement, you know. I mean, the idea of life being this experience that you're just one step at a time every day, and you start focusing on all the problems, you know, and then you miss all the things to be grateful for, you know, and the juice of life, you know.